Hey. So we already know how much people love Adalo and figured why not use Sparklite to solve some of the calculation challenges in a more creative way. So with that spirit, let's dive right in. What you see here is a very simple pricing calculator application built using Adalo. You have a whole bunch of different parameters on the left, drop downs essentially to help people choose the different input parameters. Once they've selected a whole bunch of different input right here and hit submit, different costs would be allocated against each of these items along with the total cost that will be displayed at the bottom. Now, generally, a lot of people are comfortable doing this on a spreadsheet, and this is an example of that, where you have a column for a whole bunch of different input. Let's say in this case, I'm using data validation just to make sure there are no errors while entering these different input. Other cases, I'm just using true and false. Also, the output is being calculated based on the simple couple functions. In this case, it's an if function followed by a VLOOKUP. In other cases, it's a very simple static value data that's being added here. By the end of it, we also have a sum function that just gives us the total of a whole bunch of different costs that's associated with each of these parameters. Now, a very important thing when using Sparklite to create your API from this Excel spreadsheet is to always make sure that you're naming each of these different cells by either using x input underscore for input parameters and x output underscore for output parameters. In case you are new to creating these inputs, you can always navigate to formulas and then to name manager, which is where you'll be able to create new ones, edit any existing cells that you might have tagged, or even delete anything that you may not have any use for. Once you've done all of that, make sure to save your spreadsheet, and that should be it from the spreadsheet side of things. Now let's switch to the Sparklite application. You're free to create an account. You don't have to enter a credit card. And once you've logged in, you'll land onto the dashboard. Here's where you can click on Create New API, click Next, go ahead and browse and upload your Excel spreadsheet right here. This might take roughly about 30 to 45 seconds, depending on how big your spreadsheet and how complex these formulas are. By the end of it, you'd be able to get the REST endpoint that we'll need to use inside, let's say in this case, Adalo. What's happening in the backend is the system's taking all the Excel logic and converting it into code, which then essentially produces the API endpoint. That's what we'll end up consuming. I'm going to go ahead and click New API, then go on See API Details. Now, this is essentially what we need. We have the API endpoint right here. We will be using the post method. This is important to make note of. I'll show you where we'll use this inside Adalo as well in a minute. In Sparklite, you also have a bit of a playground where you can sort of toggle different input values right here and test whether your API is working the way it's supposed to. So in this case, I just changed a bunch of different parameters, and let's say I hit submit, give it a quick second, you have the output that shows up right here. So you'll see that the total value is 33,000 in this case. And for people who are more comfortable with the technical aspects of it, you can also toggle to the JSON view. Essentially, just click your way through to different objects right here to see what the data output structure would look like. If you scroll on further, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of different integration guides right here. I typically end up using Postman to test APIs. We also have a bunch of different headers that we'll end up consuming. You can also use curl in case you're more comfortable there. Either ways, always make sure to test your APIs before using it in another application. This is all we need to go through on the Sparklite side of things. Now let's switch to the Adalo side of things, right? So this is the skeleton of the app. For people who are more already accustomed to using Adalo, you'd recognize that a whole bunch of these are simply texts that I've written as tags or indicators. And these are drop downs that you see right here. To enable these drop downs, the first crucial step is to create collections in your databases. So in this case, say for instance, if I wanted to set a whole bunch of different goals, so I've created a collection for that and added 3 records that you see right here. I've done the same thing for, let's say, the product as well, the categories being 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 plus, etc. For remaining, let's say, whether or not I need SEO, I've just created the collection and added true or false as statuses right here. And that's pretty much it. A quick note I've come to understand is anytime you're creating these components, it's always helpful to name these components independently, as that way it becomes a lot easier to reference them across other components that we'd end up consuming. Once you have that done, the important or the crucial step is when creating the button right here. This is where we'll actually end up using what's known in Adalo as a custom action. You need to be on the paid account or the trial account like I am right now to make sure that you have this available. What you have to do is click on custom action and click on new custom action and essentially go through the process here. It's a similar process that I've sort of created my custom action already. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit edit. You can name it. Also make sure to click create. In this case, that's what we're going to go with. Hit next. Here is where I'm going to go ahead and replace the endpoint. I already had an older one, but I'm going to copy this new one right here and simply go ahead and replace the endpoint right here. We'll be using the post request for our API calls. And as for headers, you can also simply just copy these values right here as opposed to typing. Typing most times leads to errors, so it's better to just copy paste these key and value parameters that we have right here. Finally, for the body, you can just take the more important parts of the body. You can obviously just go ahead and click copy and paste the entire thing, but we really don't need the ones that it's the metadata for the body at this point in time. Since the values that we need here needs to be dynamic in nature, what you need to make that happen is create these inputs as parameters as well. You can just click add item, hit text, and essentially that'll open up this dialog, which I've already done for all these different input parameters right here. You can also enter an example value because that's what we'll end up using as a test API call. Once you have created those input parameters, you can then use them by clicking this icon right here. I'm just going to show you a quick example. So I bring my cursor right next to this parentheses, click this T icon and just click goals, and you'll see that goals show up right here. I'm going to remove that for now. But essentially, once you have that, you can just replace, let's say, the static values that you'd copy from your Sparklite document and then just replace them with dynamic values right here for each of these. Once you're good, you can then click on the run test request button right here. Give it a quick second again. Adalo automatically just parses the entire JSON data output and gives you all the relevant information that you need. Anytime you find something's not relevant, you can go ahead and bin that particular data point as well. In our case, we have everything the way we need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Save Custom Action button right there. Once we are good, the next step would be to display the output of the API request that we just made. And to do that, we'll create these text input fields, and that's where we'll go ahead and display these values. So you can once again imagine I've just created these input fields, made sure that each of these input fields have their independent text field name. Again, very crucial to making sure while we're referencing these components through other components, it always comes handy. Now, going back to our button, all you again have to really do is just go all the way down, click add another action, go to more and change input value. The moment you do that, you'll be shown this particular dialog right here where you can choose a whole bunch of different input fields. In this case, that's where the output of our API call would be shown. Just map each of those to the value of the API request itself, which you can dynamically access by clicking this drop-down icon right here, navigating to Sparklite pricing calculator. And then, well, in this case, we just have to hover over each of these parameters because they're a little too lengthy for the Adalo UI to display. And that way you can know, okay, which of these are goals, the total amount, the website cost, and so on and so forth. Once you have done that for all the different parameters, really all you have to do is click preview or just go ahead and publish your app. And I'm just going to go ahead and click that real quick. Once the app is loaded, let's go ahead and set these different values, right? So I'm going to say the goal is to reach audience. We'll have roughly just 1 to 5 different products. Branding, sure, I'll take that. Website, definitely. I don't really need the blog to begin with. SEO for sure. Analytics, not so much. And once we have the input, hit submit, give it a quick second, and you'll see the values being populated right here with the total amount being displayed here as well. To make sure that all of this is dynamic in nature, you can, let's say, toggle branding to be false. Let's say we don't need that right off the bat. Hit submit, and you'll see only this value being changed along with the total that shows up right here. We can do this for all the different parameters as well. Let's say the idea is to generate leads, the value changes there and at the very bottom of that screen as well. So this is obviously one of the more easier use cases, but the idea behind this is to demonstrate you can practically translate any complex logic that you've built on your Excel spreadsheet and use that in Adalo or practically other apps that you end up creating these front-end applications. I hope this video helped, and thanks for watching.